So here we are. How do we kick this off? I suppose the first thing is, for people that don't know about Spiritgrow, could you tell us a little bit about Spiritgrow and what is its main objectives, its mission, its vision? What is Spiritgrow, Laibl and Menachem?
Thank you for that initial biographical data. As I mentioned, I was doing undercover work in another arena when I disappeared, and it was in camouflage clothing, and I stayed in that camouflage clothing ever since then. Okay, so when Menachem and I started Spiritgrow, we didn't want to add just another synagogue congregation into the landscape of Melbourne, which is well endowed in that respect. What we were really looking for was to be able to formulate an approach that people would find attractive to discover their spiritual selves. Now, that's more than just religious selves. It was something that we wanted to ensure that individuals who were wanting to embark on a pathway of self-discovery Jewishly through curiosity or through quest for meaning would be able to find an avenue. So that's broadly speaking. And we more or less split up, Menachem and I, into two different arenas of our life's activity. Menachem is, as you know, one of Melbourne's most attractive and foremost and talented young rabbis, much sought after for all weddings and simchas and the like, but an amazing teacher in his own right. Of course, this is a father talking with bias, but I think objectively it's true. And
Absolutely.
I wanted to focus myself more in terms of the educational side. Pathways, how do you approach people spiritually in a way that isn't necessarily religiously dogmatic, and to formulate programs that were able to be ones of self-discovery. And so we first began not as a synagogue. In fact, we didn't have a synagogue at the beginning. We were a personal growth center, which we still are. And then after a while, people wanted to attach a synagogue to it with a difference where there would be personal growth through that medium. Is that right, Menachem? Is that the way you see it?
Yeah. The outgrowth of a shul, it actually came about because there was a request to explore prayer in Jewish spirituality. And so we ran a 3 or 7 week course, I can't remember. And when the course finished, people just kept coming. And so every Friday night was almost like another workshop, until we eventually got to a high holiday period. And we said, okay, we're going to run a spiritual Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur experience. And, I don't know, 100, 120 people showed up. And it snowballed from there. It naturally morphed into a regular coming together on Friday nights, and then Shabbos day, and then all the festivals and Yom Tovs. And as that happens, then people start feeling a sense of community, and that comes with two things: A, friendships and newfound connections, and a great place for people to be absorbed. So when someone is looking and exploring and walks in for the first time, there are other people who still remember what their first time was like and can immediately absorb and help that person feel right at home. The other thing that came along with that was that sense of community, that we are a community and you're our rabbi. And so being the de facto rabbi meant people started asking me first to do funerals, and then bar mitzvahs, and then weddings came along. And then that just drove a new momentum. Outside, people go, oh, you're a rabbi, you do weddings, you do funerals, can you help me with this, can you help me with that? And it really has just evolved over 16 years, 15 and a half years. And for some people, it's all about the funeral and the wedding and the bar or the bat mitzvah or anything else that someone needs a rabbi for as a service. And for others, it's a place where they come for a log off from their lives. So particularly on Shabbos, we have a lot of people that come just on Friday night, often on their way home from work, and they haven't even gone home yet. They've come there, they unwind, and then they go home. And they talk about it being very, very different vibe since they've started coming to shul, because we do have the meditations and we have singing and there's some level of engagement on Friday night, dialogue. And I think that really helps people flush the week that was out of their system, and they come home without the stress or the distractions, and they're just more tuned in. And then Saturday morning, Shabbos morning, is again the same sort of thing. There are people that go for walks. There are people that watch their kids at footy or cricket, depending on the time of the year. And what we've discovered, there are people that like to spend a couple hours in shul. And they're coming for either 1 hour or 2.5 hours. The people who are coming for 1 hour are coming in the middle, which is when we take the Torah out, and it's almost its own segment, because we don't just read the Torah, but between every reading, there's a lot of discussion, and it's two ways. I don't have the answers to everyone's questions, and not everyone has answers to my questions, but there's a lot of, like, I'll take for example, last week, we were reading about the daughters of Tzlafchad, who is a character in the Torah. He passes away, and his daughters don't have any land inheritance, and they challenge Moses for some land. And that, of course, opened up a full discussion into feminism in the Torah, the lack of male representation, and then over history how Judaism seems to have become very patriarchal. Now, what was beautiful was there was a three-way discussion. There was myself, there were the women, and there were the men, and this goes on for 15, 20 minutes during shul. So there are people who are coming for that stimulation, and you're just not going to get that. You can watch TV, you're going to listen to someone else's opinion. The same on radio. But to actually sit in a room with people who have different opinions, it's not like you have to invite them to your house. If you don't like what they have to say, you're going to be out of the room in 25 minutes, don't worry. And so, again, it's become this break from life and a place for enrichment, which they then take into their life.
And it's interesting, Menachem, how we have actually two almost different sets of audiences. We have a audience that is very much into the kind of growth material that Menachem just described. And then we've got the other audience that comes during the week. They're interested more in pure meditation sessions. They're interested in Kabbalah and Chassidut. They're interested in the contemporary spiritual arena. And they want to be able to see if they can grow in that direction without necessarily having been to a synagogue. Many of them actually organically gravitate towards the synagogue experience because that's an outgrowth of that. And therefore we have seminars and lectures. Health and wellness, for example, we have the leading academics from universities speaking about areas of health, and we spoke recently a series on psychedelics and its benefits in current experimentation and the like. And we always have a Jewish dimension in terms of what it is that health is, whether it's according to Maimonides or whether it's according to basic values of health and wellness as a means of the soul being able to express through the machinery of the body. So it's very wide-reaching, and I don't think there's any other organisation or centre in Melbourne that actually has this rather total, holistic vantage point on Judaism, allowing entry points at so many multi-levels.
And that's the thing. I completely agree with you that the uniqueness of the structure of Spiritgrow is so unique in what you present and what you offer and so forth for personal growth and spiritual awareness is just fantastic because, as you said, I don't think there's any other congregational structure that actually offers what you offer. And it's a wonderful thing to have that. So, kol hakavod to you.
I'll say a few words. Good morning, rabbis.
Good morning.
I've got a couple of questions for you. The name Yosef Chris on the outside of the building down there in Balaclava Road, who's that? It seems so an un-Jewish name.
So it's
who is it?
It is a phantom name,
right?
Because we're very used to in Australia we know the names of the people who are on the buildings. Someone knows them. Joseph Chris is not known to anyone in Australia because, and I'll ask my father to actually expand on that, because he has a personal connection with Joseph's son Leo. But Joseph Chris was a Holocaust survivor who moved to New York, and from New York to Brazil. And how a Brazilian benefactor came to support an organisation in Melbourne might be better for my father to tell, because it was on a Pesach program on some ski resort in Canada, which my father was officiating for the Seder.
Okay.
It is actually a beautiful story. Most people, as Menachem hinted at, don't believe Joseph Chris actually exists, that it's some exotic name that we conjured up. But the truth is, I happen to be a co-presenter with the late Rabbi Jonathan Sachs for a Pesach, which was in the Canadian Rockies at a ski resort. It was a most wonderful experience, and I got to know Rabbi Jonathan very, very well over that period.
Did you go skiing with him?
No, we didn't, but we did do some very nice walking alone in the various snow treks there. It was he was an exceptional individual. If I can diverge, most people understand him as a fantastic Jewish academic, but what he did behind the scenes with the royal family, with the governmental individuals, creating a sense of values based on the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach, the Noachide laws of universal ethics and morality, that's a completely other story. But there I was, and Rabbi Jonathan Sachs was conducting one Seder, and I was conducting another Seder, and at my Seder there was an individual amongst the hundreds that were there, whom I never had known before, never met before, and he came up to me later and asked questions. He was interested, and his name was Leo Chris. And I was at that stage contemplating opening up a centre with Menachem here, which became Spiritgrow, and I shared with him the vision, and he loved it. And he said, what can I do to make it happen? So I didn't know whether he's saying, right, he's probably going to offer me $1,000 to help contribute. At the end, he actually underwrote the first several years of the total operation.
Wow.
Fantastic.
In the name of his late father, who Menachem introduced. And we named the centre accordingly after him as well. An extremely wonderful individual who Menachem and I see regularly, at least annually, in one shape or another. And it's been a generation later. We've seen his family grow up. He had quadruplets, which is absolutely amazing. And we've seen them grow up and even marry now at this stage. And we have this wonderful organic relationship with him. Of course, today he no longer supports the whole centre. He's moved to many other arenas, and we've got many other very wonderful people in Melbourne who help make Spiritgrow happen, and we seek their assistance, but Leo Chris is one of the very special people.
Menachem, the Kehilla grew quite strongly from its early days. I remember you had Friday nights sushi and sake, a famous event. Was that correct? Each Friday night drew a lot of people in.
Yes.
And I believe for the high holidays, you got record numbers you had to hire St Kilda Town Hall in the early days, correct?
Yes, that's right.
Record numbers, something like 500-600 people, someone said.
At the peak in St Kilda Town Hall, we were over 800.
800, there you go. It grew at a rapid rate.
Yeah.
And Kol HaKavod for all your good work, I've heard very good reports. What I've got out of Spiritgrow, I've never been in the building, but from people who have gone along, they stress a lot on your breathing and pausing in the middle of the tefillas and prayer, especially before Shema, to take a deep breath, to pause. And I take that with me. I learnt a lot.
That's yoga.
Well, it's part of their Spiritgrow.
He must be a yogi as well as a rabbi.
What I moonlight as would be very different to what my father moonlighted as in Q.
You do a marvellous job. You do meditation, cooking even, conscientious eating. I looked up on your website, neuro-linguistic programming, yoga, as you mentioned, Kabbalah. We'll talk about that shortly with Laibl Wolf. Stress busting, mind and body healing, and relationship management. You got the whole package here. Plus, davening in the Nusachari. You use Chabad prayer books?
Yes, it's a Nusachari because ultimately when we follow a spiritual pathway, a Kabbalistic pathway, there are many, many different schools of Kabbalah. And you get more Ashkenazic, more Sephardic. And the Chabad Hasidic school of thought follows Lurianic Kabbalah. And Lurianic Kabbalah is Sephardic. And so we've maintained that for spiritual reasons to stay with that particular liturgy. And you talk about breathing. We do breathing and meditation during prayer. In fact, I might say that the prayers are wrapped around the meditation because we follow that principle that prayer and tefillah is a form of meditation. It's a form of contemplation and introspection. And the truth is we also do breathing before and during lectures. It's just a great way to help people reset and come into that space. It'd be a bit like this recording studio. You'd want people to honour the space and be present and not be checking their phones and worried about the time. Just be here and appreciate the timber and the panels on the wall and really get into what's being achieved in here. And breathing is a simple way to help people transition.
Wonderful. So we've talked about the combination of physicality and spirituality, etc., but we also are aware that you're in the near future going to move premises, and there's this whole project that you've got that you're undertaking to build a base Ne'eman B'Yisrael in Kuyong Road.
So this is a really important project because we started in a warehouse in the current location of Spiritgrow, which is a rental property. And it has served us well, but there are always challenges when you're renting a property. And there are a lot of limitations to the property itself. First and foremost, it's too small. We want to be smart about the usage of space and dynamic so that we are not wasting communal funds, but you can only reuse a room in so many different ways on any given day. And so to be able to have a larger space and a space with garden and outdoor air and trees is somewhere between whatever that space between necessity and luxury. It's a very exciting development. So we're going to be moving to Kuyong Road, and we have wrestled through COVID and the building challenges there. We've wrestled through council process, which makes COVID look very small. And we are also discovering that the rising building costs of the last 3 years, which have just kept pushing our deadlines out and pushing our plans, because we just look at the last 3 years alone, our building costs went up by over 50%.
Wow.
Well, 2 weeks ago we came to understand why. We're not a CFMEU work site.
Right.
And we're footing the bill for the tunnel. But we've been able to work around all these challenges, and we're not far from pressing the go button to begin construction works, and really to be able to create a permanent community centre. I don't really like those words because every community centre uses that term. It would be a centre for the community to come to be able to meditate, to be able to reflect, to be able to engage in Jewish spirituality, and whether they want to do that in sun-filled rooms or whether they want to sit in really what we hope to be beautiful gardens in the heart of Caulfield, that there should be a place that you can really walk off the street and move into a different space, a different dynamic, a different dimension, if you will, whether you're coming for 20 minutes or an hour, whether on the way to work, on the way home from work, before school, after school, or on a Shabbos, but really a place that is so much more than just a set of rooms. It should be a place that creates influence on people's lives and hopefully brings positive influence to the community as a whole.
And is this going to be a centre, hopefully, that will be open to whoever wants to come to this centre on a 24/7 basis? Do you see it that way?
Yeah, we're not going to sleep. That's definitely 100%. Yeah, you're right. Look, of course it's going to be open. I think the openness dimension is to relate to every single kind of Jewish orientation or Jewish people that don't have a Jewish orientation. So that's the openness, non-judgmental, very inviting, and just a place where people at their own pace can self-discover and move forward. And we provide props. They are the personalities of Menachem and Laibl. They are the courses. They are the style of davening. Many, many opportunities to be catalysts for people to be able to evolve as human beings. Look, I have a basic belief that at the core of all humanity lies the sphere of chesed, which is a spiritual description of what is the underlying fulfillment aspect of a human being. Giving, sharing, contributing. Everyone wants to give, share and contribute. Whether it's of tangible property, money, or whether it is emotionally, whether it is intellectually. Everyone wants to be a giver and feels best when they're a giver. And that's how you grow, that you give and you grow. And I have a strong belief that if we are able to afford people that opportunity to see how they can give in their own household, in society, and elsewhere of all these dimensions, they become happier people. And as a result of the happiness, that's infectious. Other people smile more. Society begins to evolve and grow positively. And we move away from the kind of inverted situation that we have in the present day.
Mm. And the really, really important question that I've got, are you going to have a good Yiddish, Hamish restaurant?
You mean with sushi?
No, I'm talking about cholent and kishka and all of those heartening foods.
Herring.
So it's funny you should ask, because you mentioned earlier we used to do sushi and sake, and that brought the...
You were famous for it.
Well, yeah, but then sushi and sake became as classic as herring and whiskey. So we've actually gone all retro, and we actually have a variety of different herrings that one of our team members, Rabbi Izzy Pastik, he actually makes. He's a herring aficionado, and he makes his chili chariza herring, and he makes his honey mustard herring and classic herring. And it's amazing because, as generations go by, it's like now everyone dresses like they're from the 90s. So also the cuisine is like, oh, this is so 1890s, loving it. And so the classic schnapps and herring has brought a lot of people who didn't grow up with that to shul and enjoy the novelty. And you talk about kishka and cholent. So we have cholent once a month. People love cholent. It's a really bonding food. Like you can sit over it. And in order to be all-inclusive, we have our cholent with meat and kishka, but we also have a vegan cholent, and we have a gluten-free cholent. And that way, whatever your Ashkenazic or Sephardic body can handle, it can be taken care of at Spiritgrow. So very much so, and not in a restaurant format, but in a more classic format where people can just sit and enjoy, and we don't have to worry about will we be able to sell a bowl of cholent for $18 plus GST, and then, like many other kosher institutions, be out of business after 18 months, or will we survive?
Well, you're
like
you're
cholent and herring.
You're
going to be in the right.
Add that, cholent. So it's a food. But it's Spiritgrow.
Of course.
So there's a spiritual dimension.
Absolutely.
I mean, people don't realize that the word cholent comes from the French chaude, which means warm, and it's an opportunity to be able to explain why we have a food that's cooked from before Shabbos and eaten on Shabbos, and that's an opportunity to study the laws of Shabbos through the cholent itself.
Yep.
So in other words, there's other dimensions of even the food stuff that we present.
Absolutely.
What about your kugel? Do you do a kugel?
We don't. This isn't Smooths or whatever the different restaurants of the 1950s Melbourne was. We actually do bring out kugel a few times a year, but that's with our bar and bat mitzvah students and families, where we we do a culinary, historical culinary experience for them, where they taste many different Sephardic and Ashkenazic foods that would be found on a Shabbos table, and it's very interesting to see their faces. So I can tell you now that gefilte fish is not a popular dish anymore, although, most embarrassingly, because you'll see, we served gefilte fish to one particular student last year, and he says, wow, tastes very much like crab.
Right.
And his mother goes, no, shh, you're not meant to say that to the rabbi. He says, I've already discussed what frogs taste like with the rabbi. I can share with him crab. But interestingly, kugel, for some reason, to us it's such a normal food, but apparently it's got a strange texture. Many of the bar mitzvah boys and girls have told me that they don't like it. It feels funny in their mouth. Some enjoy the sweet Lokshen kugel, and the thought of that in the middle of a meal entices them. But herring, maybe 50% uptake. Gefilte fish, very low. Cholent has been popular, especially amongst students with an Anglo background. They compare it to like their grandparents' stew or something like that, even though we make a more gluggy cholent at Spiritgrow. But the dips, hummus, chatzilim, tachina, these things really do resonate. So it might be that the world is going Sephardi and we don't even realize it.
Let me just add to that the other dimension. Firstly, by the way, Menachem's Bar Mitzvah program is so unique because it includes parents and children in the very same course, and they have to attend together. So it's a family
Wonderful.
growth experience, which is, when I watch it, Menachem in action with the parents and the kids, it's absolutely marvelous. But the other aspect is we're talking about food and culturally the kind of food that Jewish people eat, but the other dimension of Spiritgrow is conscious eating, which you alluded to earlier. What does it mean to eat with proper spiritual intention? What allows us the right to kill an animal, or, might I add, kill a plant? Because in our tradition, each possesses a soul spark. And how do you approach that in a way which is ethical and moral in order to be able to elevate the spark of soul within the food itself? So there's a whole dimension of spirituality in the whole eating process.
Yeah, absolutely. So just in terms of this new project, what sort of timeline do you expect in terms of being able to open up the doors and kiss the mezuzah and walk in and start?
Hanukkah Sabayis.
Yes, Hanukkah Sabayis, absolutely.
It's a closely held secret.
Right.
I would love to break the news on J-Air and on this particular show.
Well, we'll invite you in to do that.
Yes, I look forward to the opportunity to share all those answers.
Okay.
Another question. The Spiritgrow has a very good name in the area of conversions. Can you tell us a bit? Are you doing many at present, or what's the history there? And
so it's really interesting because we don't do a lot. As in, there are shuls in Melbourne that have large programs and have much larger membership base, and they have many more people going through conversion. And yet, for some reason, we do have a very, I'll admit, a very positive reputation. I can't say exactly why, but I will talk to what I'm finding resonates. All our conversion processes run through the Melbourne Beth Din. So we're not doing anything solo, but it's all about providing support to a person or a couple or a family who are going to move into the Jewish faith. And the way conversion works in most places, and Melbourne is no different, someone who's converting will have a teacher, and then they have to have a mentoring rabbi. And the teacher is there to teach all the details, and the mentoring rabbi is there to provide support, help them integrate what they're learning with the practicalities of their life. And I think what I'm seeing is that people who are converting and coming to Spiritgrow really resonate with our spirituality. And so I will explain to every person who's embarking on a journey to want to join the Jewish people that we're not just a religion, we're not just a nation, we're not just a historical identity, but the notion of conversion as the Lubavitch Rebbe and my father discussed in a private audience back in the 70s, is a Gersh Niskayo, someone who was estranged from their people and feels currently disconnected from where they should feel at home. And so they're seeking and they're yearning for something more. It's that there's a soul inside them that's calling out for change. And these sorts of messages resonate deeply with people who have been on a journey, and they feel a certain acknowledgement when they hear, like, yes, we feel a discomfort with remaining in our status quo. And I think it's the spirituality. I can't put it down completely, but I think it's the spirituality. I think it's the environment. As I said earlier, Spiritgrow as a human community is a very warm place. Everyone remembers what their first day was like, and the fact that there is no traditional Spiritgrow Jew, as in you've got people with beards and big yarmulkes and women with Israeli-style tichels, and you've got people who this is their 1 hour a month of Jewish connection. People from many different backgrounds, people from different continents. So you walk into Spiritgrow and there'll be people from Asia and from South America who aren't necessarily from a Jewish background and either have converted or have discovered Jewish lineage. And I think that just makes people who may feel more intimidated in a more classic Australian Jewish environment feel a little more safer and comfortable. I can't. It'd be interesting to hear from them what it is, but those are some things that I could put down to why maybe people are coming. I'm very open with people that I can't support everyone who's going on that journey. Sometimes people need other things that our community can't provide them. And it might be that sort of, when you start pushing people away and say, sorry, I can't, they want to come even more. It's like the cafe with only 5 tables, and we only have 5 tables in our cafe.
Mm. There's that other dimension. Again, Menachem alluded to the fact that I had the privilege of having one of my 7 private audiences with the Rebbe involved the discussion of conversion. And the Rebbe noted there's no such thing as conversion. So obviously I raised an eyebrow, and the Rebbe explained that what the process is to make a discovery whether that individual possesses a Jewish soul. And if they go through the process and it's made deliberately difficult and the like, then what we find at the end of the day when they go through the ceremony, we assume they always were Jewish. But for reasons best known to God, the kind of Gilgal reincarnation was in a non-Jewish environment and mother, etc. So we're not being judgmental of the individual and sort of looking down and saying, oh, I'm Jewish and now you're learning to be Jewish to become Jewish. This might well be a fellow brother or sister, and I'm helping them individually to make that discovery, and we are trying to make that discovery. So it's a really wonderful dynamic of equality in many respects.
It's an incredible way of looking at it. It's a completely new insight that actually there's no real conversion as such. It's just basically a rediscovery of oneself.
Yeah, Boris, we must ask Laibl about his relationship with or connection with the Dalai Lama.
The Dalai Lama, yes. I had a wonderful session with the Dalai Lama, and it wasn't because I travelled to Nepal or the areas where he lives. He was visiting Australia at the time, and I was teaching a course at Melbourne University on comparative Judaism and Buddhism, and I did that for several years at Melbourne University. And in one class, a number of the Buddhists were coming with their robes. 3 of them attended the whole course. They didn't open their mouth, but they were very, very interested, obviously. And this was an occasion or time when the Dalai Lama was visiting Australia, and I get a call from the Dalai Lama's office. Would I be prepared to meet with him out of the blue?
You thought it was a prank call.
Yeah, I thought it was a prank call, absolutely. At any rate.
One of your congregants of Spiritgrow having you on.
Yes. So at any rate, it transpired that those 3 students had told the Dalai Lama that there's this curious rabbi who's teaching Buddhism and Judaism at the university, and his curiosity was obviously piqued, so hence came the call. So I said, yes, that's fine, because I was always interested. I'm always interested to meet interesting people. And they said, well, okay, he's got time, and he would like to see you 4:30 in the morning, and it was going to be a Monday. And I said, oh yeah, 4:30. I'm always up at 4:30. At any rate, and I had to look important, so I brought 2 of my friends with me to be my entourage, so that there'd be a sense of presence about it. But I asked one of them to smuggle in a little camera to get a shot of the Dalai Lama and myself. Why? Because then I would be able to publicize it and have a better profile for the Jubus, the Jewish young people who were involved in ashrams, and if they saw me with the Dalai Lama, I could access them more easily and speak to them and bring them back to Judaism and the like. At any rate, so here we are, 4:30 in the morning. I've got 2 people next to me. One has got a little tiny hidden camera that he's got to pull out at the operative moment, and we step into the room, which happened to be at a hotel, one of the Rockman hotels at the time, because the late Mr. Rockman was a supporter of the Dalai Lama. And what do I do when I walk in? I see this big tripod camera that the Dalai Lama had set up. He wanted a photo of the rabbi with the Dalai Lama. So we ended up having some beautiful shots. Oh. And we spoke for about 2.5 hours and revolved around 2 questions. He wanted to know, number 1, what is the secret of Jewish survival, because his people were going into an exile and had been so at the time for 50, 60 years, and we had been in exile for thousands of years, so we must have a secret to our survival. That was one part of the discussion. And of course I pointed out to him that it's the Torah and the extensive involvement in that's the common denominator throughout all those thousands of years. And the other one was he was interested to know how is it that the Jewish family was able to maintain its tight-knit unit. And I wasn't about to tell him that unfortunately many of the current statistics show that we are moving into an assimilatory trend with the divorce rate and etc. being not too far different from what's the societal statistic. But I talked to him about what are the kind of Jewish spiritual bondings and common goals that a Jewish family has. These were the 2 areas he was interested in.
Right.
Fascinating.
And it would be fascinating to see whether he's changed his perspective on life.
Apparently
as a result of your conversation.
He loves herring now. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Right.
What about, we're lucky to have the 2 rabbis here today. You know why? Most of the Melbourne rabbis are in Israel at the moment with the RCV conference. You weren't invited, or you part of that group, RCV?
What did Groucho Marx say? I don't want to be part of a club that wants me. My father is not a member, and I am. I'm not sure how it came to be that I am a member, because I generally haven't joined any unions or groups or anything. I've always wanted to have Spiritgrow independent, not be branded by anything that's going on. I think that's very important. I think sometimes there is a power to groups, and that's important, but I haven't found that Spiritgrow needed to be brought into anything.
I think Katanga's like that as well, Morris.
We don't have a rabbi.
No, but
well, that's not quite true. We have about 70, 80 congregants on a Shabbos, and we have 70 to 80 rabbis.
But it wouldn't have been an option to go. It's actually amazing. One of the rabbis, and I'll show you the photo, sent me a photo of him with a kibbutz lady, and he said, this lady runs up to us. They were either on a kibbutz, she lives on the edge of Gaza, so they must have been there, and she says, is Menachem Wolf here? Is Menachem Wolf here? And they're like, how do you know Menachem Wolf? So on October the 7th, one of the members of Spiritgrow family, was visiting friends on a kibbutz right there where Hamas attacked. And he was stuck on the kibbutz. And when all the men went out to fight and defend the kibbutz, he was staying in a particular family's house, and he cooked for everyone because he couldn't fight as an Australian. And until the army evacuated the kibbutz, which was over a week later, and he could eventually get on a repatriation flight back to Australia, he was there. So we would Zoom, and he introduced me to the family, and I've stayed in touch with the family because they find it remarkable that there's a religious person in Australia that actually cares about them. It's not to do with me being religious. It's that sometimes Israelis feel quite isolated. They think that they are their own independent country, and they don't always realize how much the diaspora loves them and considers them brothers and sister. And so I remained in touch. Her name's Gully, and I've promised her that when I come to Israel next, I'm actually going to come to her house and eat with them. She's like, how? I'm not religious. How are you going to eat in my house? I said, Gully, you live in Israel. You go to the shop, you buy some kosher hummus, and I'll eat with you. Like, I haven't got a problem. So she thought I had arrived with all the rabbis. So my plan is actually to go to Israel after Sukkot. I have a niece getting married, and that's my priority, to get to Israel then.
Wonderful. Well, we're coming up to the end of the first hour of 10K Radius. It's 10:56 and 29 seconds. We have been talking to two Rabbonim, the Wolves, and that is Laibl and Menachem from Spiritgrow. We wish them Mazel Tov for all the things that they have done in the past. We wish them well for the future. We wish them Hatzlocha, Brocha,
thank you,
and all the good things that one could wish another human being. But importantly, we look forward to the project that is coming up, hopefully in the not-too-distant future in Kuyong Road, and that your community should grow from strength to strength, and numbers and numbers, and that you should be, what can one say other than we always hope and look forward to communities such as yourselves being so pivotal to the Melbourne Jewish community in its entirety. So thank you very much for coming in. You're more than welcome to stay on after the hour, but this is about the time that we have to get our advertising in so that we can earn a bit of money as well, and make the boss who's sitting there luxuriating there in the studio making sure that the bills are paid, etc., etc. And we'll be back just after the hour at 11 o'clock for another hour of 10K Radius. And once again, thank you very much, Laibl and Menachem, for coming into the studio, and we look forward to that date as to when you're going to be commencing your project in the not too distant future. Thank you very much.
Thank
Kol
you.
hakavod.